Welcome to the Middle East Teaching and Learning Conference. I'm Heylin, and today I will be discussing my presentation with you, which is called Serious Play. So before we begin, I'll just give you a bit of information about me. So I'm from Ireland and I've been working in Dubai for the past 6 years. 4 of those years I spent working in early years foundation stage, and then for the other 2 I've been in lower primary. I'm also studying an MBA in educational leadership through Tamak University in Finland, and it's from doing my MBA and learning a lot about the Finnish system that I've been inspired to do some research into how we could adopt more of a Finnish ethos into primary education. I actually do believe that a play-based environment, is relevant also in secondary. It can be in adult education, in universities. But for today, I'm going to focus on how we can adopt more of a play-based environment and play-based methodologies in primary education. And also, please remember that questions can be asked via the Q&A section on the app, and I will be really happy to respond to you there. We'll begin with some misconceptions about play. So the first one is that play only applies to children. So it is obviously traditionally viewed as only applying to young children, and it seems to be something that you have to give up when you grow up. So there is a sense of risk almost in saying that an adult is at play, and more so people believe that, work is respectable and that play is not. But, adults, we also play sport, music, hobbies and games. So it doesn't apply just to children, it's applicable to all age groups. The second one then is that play is easy. So actually, quite the contrary is true. So even as adults, we engage in challenging and difficult activities when we play. So the things mentioned above, like sport, chess, lots of those require problem solving and critical thinking. So similarly, children's play is an engaging and deliberate activity in which they devote great effort and commitment to develop those critical thinking skills. And another misconception is that play is irrelevant to learning. So play aids with development of positive attitudes to learning that are essential throughout life. So some of these include resilience, persistence, curiosity, and creativity. So play and creativity are actually the basis for entrepreneurship and innovation, which are actually at the core of education here in Dubai, in the UAE, and in the Middle East. So all of these skills and concepts are applicable and necessary for success and creativity in life. So we need to understand that when we see people at play, they are being curious, they're developing their creativity, and we shouldn't associate it as purely play. We need to understand and see the value in it. So the definition of play. So play is actually a very difficult concept to define. And the definition of play, it can vary by culture and experience. So it's often thought of as the opposite to work, but this is quite misleading. And then a theme of this presentation that we will look at is age-appropriate play. So for the definition, so for the purpose of this research, play will be defined as something that is student-led. So it's usually voluntary, but in a school context, in a primary school context, this can be leading the direction of their learning through play, and it is intrinsically motivating for the students. It also develops imagination, creativity, and divergent thinking. So there will be a make-believe element to play often, where students will need to think about concepts and ideas in new ways. So it is quite distinct from other behaviours in that it has that make-believe quality. And then discovery learning, so it can have open-ended or guided discovery learning. So open-ended is where the students are independently researching their learning and their outcomes, and then guided is where teacher provides a range of support, direction, feedback, scaffolding, and worked examples. Okay, so here we'll have a think about how play as a methodology could benefit primary education. So there's many reasons for this. The first one is that it develops creativity. So in the book, Princesses, Dragons and Helicopter Stories by Tricia Lee, she tells a story of a Year 5 class who lacked creativity in their story writing. And for the purpose of her studies and her research, she mixed up this Year 5 class with a Year 1 class. So, and then they took it in turns to act out the stories that they had written. So after spending some time with Year 1 children, the Year 5 stories again became full of wonder and enchantment. So this is just one example of how, as children progress through primary school, creativity can sometimes be lost and forgotten about as they don't play as much anymore. So putting opportunities like this, creativity into the curriculum and student experiences, this will ensure that teachers understand the importance of this for student development and application of innovative concepts for when they leave school too. Play also allows students to take autonomy over their learning. So this is where we can really learn some lessons from Finland. So the primary school curriculum design in Finland, it focuses on collaboration and allowing students to have an active role in their learning. So what's interesting about the Finnish curriculum is that the teachers design it for their own schools. So often in an international school setting, we're given the curriculum and we teach it, whereas the teachers in Finland, they have the opportunity to plan and create some of these play-based experiences, active learning experiences into their own curriculum design. And then another key factor from Finland is that they have a full play-based curriculum until the children are 7 years old. So that means then that the Finnish students, they are more engaged when they have ownership of their play and their learning. And also Finland has one of the highest quality education systems in the world. It was ranked #1 by The Economist in their Educating for the Future Index. And the OECD says that Finland is #2 in the world for highest performing graduates. So I do think that this has a lot to do with those solid foundations that are laid down when the children are young and playing freely right up until the age of 7, because in a lot of other settings, it is perhaps until the students are 4 or 5 years old. But the students from Finland, they always go on to perform well and teachers are happy there. So I do think that allowing them those play-based opportunities would really benefit their primary education. So next we will have a look at how play could lead to increased levels of motivation and involvement. So Dr. Fairlevers, he did lots of research on well-being and happiness at school, and what underpins his theory is that students cannot succeed or be successful unless they are happy. And he devised a scale called the Leuven scale, where you would rank the students' activity and involvement on a scale of 1 to 5, and the happier that a student was, the more engaged that they would be. And something else that he found out in his research was that the more choice a student had in the activity they completed, the higher levels of involvement tended to be in his research. And this draws parallels with Dr. Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi's flow theory. So in flow theory, he did some research and he found that when people were completing a task that required concentration, that they went into a state of flow. So he interviewed people from all different disciplines, so including surgeons, rock climbers, chefs, to people simply listening to music or reading a book. And all of the adults explained the same concept of being completely absorbed in the task, which led them to ignore things such as hunger, thirst, or sleep. And he defines flow as the state in which people are so involved in an activity that nothing else seems to matter. The experience is so enjoyable that people will do it even at a great cost, even at the sake of, for the sheer sake of doing it. So this draws parallels with, this is in adults, and flow theory, being completely engaged and motivated and absorbed in activity. And for young children, Dr. Fairlevers has the Leuven scale. So I do think that in primary education, perhaps being aware of both of these, you know, that we want students when they're playing or working to be in a state of flow and also have high levels of involvement. So I think just being aware of both of them and perhaps coming up with a combination of which two to assess will really benefit the curriculum experiences for students as they play. And the last one here is that the practical approach creates lifelong learners and prepares students for a life beyond the classroom. So here in Dubai, innovation is a key component of Dubai curriculum requirements, and it's quite an integral part of culture, not only here, but in the whole Middle East. And innovation stems from curiosity and feeling safe and confident to try out new ideas. So by empowering our students to take risks in a nurturing school environment, they will be adept to do the same when they leave. And then, I mean, who knows what sort of creators or future entrepreneurs we are currently teaching in our classrooms. Next, we're going to look at how to implement a play-based curriculum in primary education. So this is taken from the Lego Foundation. They did a white paper on implementing a play-based curriculum in primary schools. And the Lego Foundation, if you are interested in play, they are a fantastic resource. They do lots of research and they look at play in different areas, different age groups, how to offer play-based experiences for students. They really do fantastic research, and they are always coming up with new ideas and writing new articles. So I definitely would recommend looking into the Lego Foundation. So first, in this flower here in the middle, these are the 5 holistic skills that they looked at. So what they did was they took the impact of learning through play and analysed them through these 5 areas. So for physical, that is obviously our fine and gross motor skills. Social skills, these were things such as collaboration, communication, positive peer play, negotiating skills, social connection, and verbal skills. Cognitive skills then, so this was a range of things, so some of which included computers, conflict resolution, engineering concepts and skills, essay writing, metacognition, maths, so reasoning in maths, and then also reading comprehension and science concepts. So that's a lot there. Then for emotional skills, they looked at things like engagement, confidence, well-being, listening, self-regulation, and positive classroom behavior. And then for the creative skills, they looked at things such as innovation and divergent thinking. So these are the skills that they analysed, the methodologies listed here for learning through play through. And these methodologies listed here, so active learning, cooperative and collaborative learning, experiential learning, guided discovery learning, inquiry-based learning, problem-based learning, project-based learning, and Montessori Education. What Lego Foundation did was they analysed how teachers could implement these methodologies in primary school, and they did some research and looked at the results, and they wrote all about the benefits of these in the white paper. So the first one here, active learning. So this is an approach where students or learners are actively involved or engaged in the learning process. So it's characterized by learner choice or autonomy regarding the task itself, as well as how and when the learners respond. So this leverages learners' own interests to engage them in the learning process, and it uses hands-on, authentic, real-world related activities with teachers occupying the role of facilitator rather than instructor. So the teacher's role here, it can be asking questions, focusing on teachable moments, and also encouraging the sharing of knowledge with other children, to record observations and provide materials and resources to enhance the learning. So then active learning aligns with the LEGO Foundation's these characteristics of learning through play, because it provided some meaningful opportunities for learners, and they found that they were more engaged when the learner experiences from home and education settings are integrated. And then also there was social interaction transpired as active learning and used group work and peer learning. And this resulted in positive teacher-student interactions. It also worked because the learners were engaged, as they have had a degree of freedom and choice in the learning process and in the activity. And the learners were investigating and exploring new concepts and ideas in active learning environments. And they were described in the literature and the research as fun and positive, and they generated empathetic teacher-learner and peer-learner relationships too. So the next one, cooperative and collaborative learning. So these are instructional strategies designed to make the most of positive peer social interactions by grouping learners together to complete an assignment or task. So as the definitions for both cooperative and collaborative, they're largely interchangeable. The LEGO Foundation looks at them both together. So distinguishing features of these approaches are that they include meaningful tasks, active participation, and learners are working together and helping each other. So effective groups can be of mixed ability, mixed ages, depending on the task. And in addition, groups can work individually on tasks that contribute to a shared goal or together on a shared task too. So what is most important about these learning approaches is that certain essential strategies underpin their effectiveness. So using these strategies will provide greater assurance that intended learning goals and associated skills, knowledge, outcomes can be achieved irrespective of the composition of the group. So these strategies are positive interdependence. So this exists when learners know that they're linked with their group members in such a way that they know they cannot succeed in their group unless other group members do. So positively interdependent groups, they see their work as benefiting each other, they share resources, they provide mutual support, and they share in joint success. So there's nobody who is not contributing as a group member, which then makes each group member have their own unique contributions. The second strategy is face-to-face promotive action. So when learners help, support, praise, and encourage each other in groups, they promote the above condition of interdependence. So they'll also be fostering verbal and interpersonal skills and motivating and getting to know each other. So the teacher here will be responsible for describing, modeling, and reinforcing this condition throughout the group activity. So the third one then is individual accountability and personal responsibility. So this is group work activities. They need to be structured to ensure that individual performance can be easily identified, assessed, and fed back to the group or individual. So for example, via individual quizzes or random selection of individual work to present. The fourth one then is interpersonal and small group skills. This is the ability to interact effectively, which is actually a learned skill fostered through explicit teaching. So teachers must intentionally teach social skills for effective and successful group work. And then the last one is group processing. So when group members reflect on and discuss how well they achieve their goals and maintained effective working relationships, they deepen their cognitive and metacognitive learning, and that establishes the groundwork for improved future performance. And then in some of the research that the LEGO Foundation did on this, one area that it worked really well with was for problem solving in maths. So there was a study on 6th grade students in Jordan, and they made better decisions to solve mathematical problems when working cooperatively based on the feedback that they received from learners within and outside their group. So rather than working in isolation, they were more successful from working in a group and learning not only through the people in their group, but through the students in the other groups too. The next one then, experiential learning. So this is an umbrella term covering a range of educational theories and practices which share common principles about the value of experience within and beyond the classroom to meaningful learning. So John Dewey was credited with the term originating from his 1938 book, Experience in Education. So essentially, engaging experiences perpetuate learning. And this is moving learners beyond known boundaries, fueled by their interest and motivation. So for Dewey, quality experiential learning comprised meaningful experiences, important or intriguing inquiry topics, and interaction between peers and between teachers and learners. So in addition to solely classroom-based experiential learning, so programs and activities commonly associated with experiential learning include outdoor learning, outdoor adventure education, service learning, excursions and incursions, environmental education, kitchen garden programs, local and international community development initiatives, and creative arts programs. And so experiential learning provides learners with an opportunity to create meaning from their direct experience and hence optimize their learning outcomes. And then meaning can be further enhanced when children self-select experiential learning activities. It has also been found to foster social and interpersonal skills and expand networks beyond learners' immediate friendship groups. So experiential learning can be designed and delivered to dissolve the barriers that may exist between individuals and groups in the classroom. So it can allow learners to demonstrate abilities that are not brought to light in traditional classroom settings. And it can also be actively engaging for children who are at risk of disengagement. So it's actively engaging when educators provide hands-on learning in conjunction with rich group discussion and reflection. And then experiential learning, it is iterative when learners have the opportunity to investigate, explore, or experiment with different phenomena in context, and teachers can invite iteration by letting learners decide how an activity is performed and when a product is finished. So some examples of the evidence of this impact in the LEGO report. In America, so they found that first grade learners who participated in a week-long nutrition-themed learning enrichment program demonstrated greater interest in motivation towards the curriculum, in addition to a decrease in behavioural problems when they engaged in experiential learning. And also there was research done which showed that experiential learning can act as a natural site for curriculum integration, offering the children the opportunity to play while learning. So we'll say, for example, fractions through measuring ingredients and cutting up fruit into portions, practicing writing via journaling about a program, learning concepts related to science and the natural world, such as seed life cycles, nitrogen fixation, the role of insects, and how to tell whether an egg is fresh. So all of these real life experiences contributed to higher engagement and retention of knowledge then, and a decrease in behavioural issues in the research shown. So for guided discovery learning, discovery learning, it's frequently attributed to Jerome Bruner, who proposed that it is through a process of discovery that learners will develop a sense of ownership over their own learning. So he maintained that for guided discovery learning, that prior knowledge of the area provides the basis for the discovery and that it does not occur out of nowhere. So he suggested that when learners expect or are prepared to find regularities and relationships in their environment, they will devise ways of searching and finding. So he described experiments where prior to testing, subjects were advised that there was a pattern to identify or that they were expected to relay not the knowledge they gained to another person. And this suggests subjects were primed to assume a discovery mindset for the task. So there are great rewards to learning when adopting this perspective. So we can, apply this in our settings, give the students some things like this beforehand, tell them that they're going to be relaying it to a friend or looking out for certain cues or clues. And that will help them to adopt this perspective and this approach of discovery learning. And then it's often used to foster scientific skills development, so such as sound designing experiments. So this skill in guided discovery is based on iteration and trial and error, and incorrect responses are met with prompts and further questioning by teacher facilitators can nudge learners towards understanding. And then a study in 2015 found that children who had received guided discovery instruction demonstrated greater achievement and reported greater positive changes in science than those who had received direct or minimal instruction. So it's often associated with interest, motivation, and enjoyment of learning. And teachers must also view effective guided discovery methods as those which activate and prepare the mind to make a discovery, rather than those which abandon the child to purely discover on their own. So next we will go on to inquiry-based learning. So inquiry-based learning, it's student-centered approach to teaching and learning where a unit of work is organized around relative, authentic, and open-ended questions. So it's characterized by its emphasis on process, questioning, active learner involvement, the involvement of internal and external school community resources, iterative or recursive learning, reflection and deep thinking, and also ongoing assessment and learning, which leads to action. So it is important to have all of these open-ended questions and to center them around our topics and the experiences that we plan for students. And then there was a study from 2017, and it found that learners reveal their enjoyment of and interest in inquiry-based learning through increased motivation. So motivation actually for this type of learning inspired learners to learn more and to go beyond the task requirements. So for problem-based learning, so this involves working through and reflecting on problems in small self-directed groups. So with guidance from teachers as facilitators, and then in this problem-based learning, the context for learning is set via a real world problem with multiple dimensions around which a unit of work is planned. So it's actually quite similar to inquiry-based learning, where units are planned around questions. So problem-based learning, it's often posed as a strategy to foster problem-solving skills. And evidence suggests that this outcome can only be achieved if problem-solving strategies, processes, and subordinate skills such as collaboration are actually explicitly taught and not self-discovered. So that is interesting that we do need to teach those in order to further enhance and develop the students' experiences and their results. So also, in addition to that, an individual's ability to solve problems rests on the organization of their existing knowledge, what they notice, and how they represent problems. And a study from 2007 found that problem-based active learning interventions, they positively influenced learners, not only their academic achievement, but also their attitude towards science learning, and then motivation and engagement are also closely associated with this. So if we plan our experiences for our primary school children around problem-based learning, it will further enhance and develop those skills. So the next one then is project-based learning. So this is a type of inquiry-based learning where the output, a project, is the central idea around which learning is planned and structured. So key features include learning by doing, undertaking complex tasks, and producing realistic products culminating in events or presentations to an audience. So it's really kind of linked to that experiential learning and providing those real life learning opportunities for our students as they learn. So there are 5 distinguishing features of project-based learning. So projects are central, not peripheral to the curriculum. The projects are framed around driving questions or ill-defined problems. The projects must involve learners in constructive investigations which challenge learners to generate new understanding and skills, not only using existing knowledge and skills. Projects are learner-driven to some degree. They're not teacher-led, scripted, or packaged. And the projects are realistic, so they're not school-like in that they feel authentic to the learners as determined by the roles that they play, their collaborators, the product, the audience, and the performance or the assessment criteria. The last one here then is Montessori Education. So I thought it was really interesting that LEGO had put this in their report for primary school, as it is what we often associate with early years, or when children are at the beginning of their school journey. So the Montessori Education recognises the interplay between the teacher, the child, and the environment, and then the role of each in facilitating learning. So the learning materials are and the prepared environment for learning are particularly important. And then other key features include hands-on learning, group and pair work, self-directed learning with teacher guidance, and lack of competition and extrinsic rewards or punishments. So some of the characteristics of the Montessori education that align with the LEGO Foundation's characteristics of play include children move and manipulate learning objects and materials, which provide the concrete foundation that prepares them to engage with more abstract materials. And so this closely aligns with the definition of meaningful learning in learning through play, which is a review of the evidence. Montessori education capitalizes on the benefit of positive social interactions. So it's characterized by multi-age classrooms, a special set of education materials, student-chosen work in long-time blocks, collaboration, the absence of grades and tests, and individual and small group instruction in both academic and social skills. And then hands-on activities, educational materials, and the learning environment as the third teacher are characteristics of the Montessori associated with active engagement and motivation. And then what was interesting when I was looking at the research is the areas where students perform better who partook in Montessori education were in reasoning skills, positive shared play, and creative writing. So there was a study that compared students who weren't in Montessori education and students who were, and the students who were in, what we'll say they equally performed in terms of spelling and grammar, but the Montessori children demonstrated more creativity in their essays than the students who weren't educated in that way. So it just goes to show that the more play that there is in the environment and the more students are, learning in hands-on experiences and environments, that it will show through in their academic achievements and in their own independent creative tasks. So then these are some factors to consider before implementation, and these are in the LEGO Foundation white paper as effective integrated pedagogies. So the first one here, instructional design. So teachers have to design activities that can build on learners' experiences, knowledge, and learning needs, include long and short-term goals in their instructional design, incorporate evidence about what makes the approach successful, and include the opportunity to orient learners at the outset, conduct the investigation, and reflect on the process and the challenges of their activities or their play. Include a combination of teacher-guided, learner-directed, and teacher-directed instruction, and foster higher-order thinking skills, and such as problem solving and critical and creative thinking. The next one then in the implementation process, so teachers need to consider implementation success factors, such as using essential strategies, such as cooperative learning, perhaps how gender and social dynamics will influence approaches to work. So for example, working in groups or peer learning, revealing the lesson goal and scaffolding the learning, the amount, type, and quality of teacher guidance. So this varies based on the activity, the goal, the learner's abilities and learning needs, and then also acting as learners' mentors. So the teachers must monitor, question, help resolve conflicts, facilitate equitable contribution, and provide examples and evaluate learning. So then for curriculum and assessment, teachers need to focus on including multi-dimensional and integrated assessment, and then just, if possible, allowing for some flexibility in implementation. So then teacher continuing professional development. So teachers should have the education, the skills, and the knowledge to know how to implement the integrated pedagogies and the sub-strategies that underpin their effectiveness. Hold positive views about and know the benefits of the integrated pedagogies. Know that the integrated pedagogies are not unguided instruction, and then have sufficient subject matter knowledge to guide and scaffold learners' investigations. So then learner factors. So these are staged in accordance with the learners. So you must think about the prior knowledge and the skills and experiences, acknowledging that they are demanding, and also promoting inclusion and enhancing performance of diverse learner cohorts. So it's just thinking about all of the students that we have before we start to implement a curriculum with these play-based qualities. So then schools and school resources. So schools need to provide implementation support via line managers, school leadership, planning and scheduling, allow the requisite time for learners to learn using the integrated pedagogies, which takes longer than when teacher-directed approaches are used. Also, schools need to allow requisite time for teachers to manage, plan, administer and guide learners under integrated pedagogies. Provide physical space to conduct activities such as group work and peer work, and then ensure resources are available, so both internal and external to classrooms. So no, you know, and remembering as well that we're trying to make a lot of these play-based experiences as real life and realistic as possible, so opportunities to learn outside the classroom are always welcome. And then caregivers are parents, caregivers and communities. So they need to have beliefs and values that can influence support for the pedagogy, and they're actively engaged to garner support. So it will be perhaps speaking to the parents and informing them of how you will be undertaking certain projects, so that then they can be supportive throughout the whole process and have a deeper understanding of why their children might be learning in more project-based ways. So then another thing for us to think about is, must play really stop at children? So here are some different images from the Google offices, and Google regularly tops the list of happiest places to work. The Google Workplace, it's like a big playground. It has a slide and a secret ladder instead of stairs. Employees can use these stairs to get between meetings. It's got lots of old school games like table tennis to encourage activity and interaction and creative thinking. So it is really interesting that Google do understand the value of play and, you know, why it shouldn't stop at children so young. These are adults and people are really happy working here. And then research has also shown that companies that foster a workplace culture of creativity are likely to have happy, motivated and productive employees. So to conclude today's talk, so play, all of the skills that children exhibit as they play, these skills are the basis of innovation and entrepreneurship, which are more important than ever in today's world, and particularly in the Middle East. So it is really important that we understand there is value in play and value in age-appropriate play as children progress through primary school. So play, it also develops creativity, engagement, and allows students to take autonomy of their learning, which are also skills that will support the students as they progress throughout their curriculum. And it can be integrated into primary school curriculum by using the following methodologies. So by using active learning, cooperative and collaborative learning, experiential learning, guided discovery learning, inquiry-based learning, problem-based learning, project-based learning, and Montessori Education, we can adopt some of these play-based approaches that we might have, that are age-appropriate for primary school, whereas we would have previously thought of just play for younger children. These are ways that we can introduce it into primary school and really get serious about play. I would also like to say again that I would really recommend reading the white paper from the LEGO Foundation that goes into a lot more detail about all of these. And then play has benefits for all ages. So this is including even teenagers could play and adults. There could be things like using humor when teaching at university. There's lots of different examples, and the Google offices are examples as well for adults, and even just engaging in our own hobbies and creativity. They're all play. So it's just understanding that play it takes many different forms. It is, you know, it's hard work. It takes lots of critical thinking, and it benefits all age groups. So for every single age, there is age appropriate play. And I think that that's really important to remember as well if you are thinking of adopting more play into your primary school curriculum. And to conclude then, so I will leave these here. So these are some different things that I mentioned, and some I might not have mentioned, but I would have researched when I was studying this for my MBA. So if you want to have a look at these, I would recommend all of these are really interesting articles or journal articles that are all about play. So thank you so much for your time today. I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and I look forward to answering your questions on the app.